Today is day 3 of How Do I Hear from God? How do I position myself to hear from Him better? And today I want to talk about the pressure is off. And this is a phrase that the Lord gave to me as I was praying about how to share the idea and the understanding that the pressure is off you. The one communicating is the Lord, and it's His job. That responsibility is on Him to speak. And so a lot of times we get that confused, and we take on this false pressure that we need to be doing something, and that the pressure or the responsibility for the communication is on us. Our job is, again, I'm going to refer back to Mary in the story of Mary and Martha, where Mary just puts everything else aside, even things that felt pressing, and sat at the feet of her Lord. Her acknowledging and valuing His presence was her responsibility, to turn from other things, to turn away from sin or things that are pulling you away from the Lord, even if they're not bad, and turning and coming to the Lord and sitting in His presence is the position that we have. But the pressure to communicate is not on you. It's not like you're not going to be able to work hard enough to get God to communicate to you. You're not going to be able to fast for a certain amount of days so that God will communicate to you. He doesn't work like that because He's not a slave master. He is a father. But oftentimes we learn through earthly relationships and how people treat us this false understanding of God, that the pressure for someone to communicate with us is somehow we have to get them to communicate. So I just want to encourage you today, if that's you and you feel like there's this pressure on you, I have to fast, or I have to do this amount of prayer time, I have to not make any mistakes or have the perfect day in order for it to be the right environment for God to speak to me. No, oftentimes God will speak to us when we're having a terrible day, when we're feeling like, oh man, I really messed that up. And there's multiple scripture references that point to that the Lord, I think of Elijah when he is running from Jezebel into the desert because he is exhausted, and she is falsely basically saying, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to take you out. And Elijah is in a place of complete despair and discouragement and wanting to give up. And the Lord comes and speaks to him. The Lord provides for him in that time, but He also comes and speaks to him in a still small voice. And so it's not just when we are being the quote unquote perfect Christian that the Lord is going to speak. Our only job is to value His presence, is to honor Him as Lord, and the responsibility for the communication is on Him. And that doesn't upset the Lord. That's not like any sort of pressure on Him. He loves to communicate. He's always communicating. He's always trying to get our attention and speak to us and minister to us because He loves us. It is out of the love of God that He communicates. It's not out of okay, you were good enough today. And something that the Lord really highlighted to me is if you have maybe had a parent or someone that was in leadership, an older sibling, somebody that you looked up to or was in authority over you, that would reject you by being silent or pulling away and not speaking with you for spurts of time or even long periods of time, if you let them down or didn't do what they wanted you to do or didn't go with their expectation, then that can give you a false understanding of the Lord as your King, as your Father. And we have to, if that's you, the best thing to do is just stop and to ask the Lord to give you a picture of Him, to cut off that human way of rejection that the Lord would never do. And sometimes that will take meeting with someone to deal with some heart trauma or some pain that you're still carrying around and that you want to meet with to find healing, so you won't continue putting that false persona onto God the Father. The Father will never pull away from you, and he won't reject you by getting silent because you're not being good enough. Oftentimes our sin, and when we run into sin or continually choose sin, it keeps us from being in intimacy with him. He's still speaking, but it's as if we're running over here, so we're too far and we've turned our back on him, so we can't hear what he's saying, if that makes sense. And also when it comes to fasting, something that's really important with prayer and fasting is prayer and fasting doesn't make God speak to you more. Prayer and fasting clears up, gets the flesh out of the way so that we can hear him better. So if the Lord is leading you to fast or come into a season of regular prayer and fasting, which is really good, it is a spiritual discipline that is really good to do in seasons when you feel the Lord drawing you into time with him, or in seasons of warfare where you need breakthrough. That doesn't move the hand of God to act for you. It clears out your flesh so that your spirit is on is clear and has no blockages from the flesh. So that's my understanding of fasting and prayer. But the biggest thing the Lord wanted me to encourage you with today is to relax in the presence of the Lord. Rest is one of the inheritance. That is part of your inheritance as a child of God, is to be living in a position of rest with the Father as his son or daughter. You don't have to strive anymore. And the only time the Lord talks about striving for the believer is to strive to enter into the rest, meaning fight against everything that keeps you from staying in a position of rest in the Lord. And when we rest in him and we relax in him, and we can even laugh with him, the pressure starts to lift, and that allows earthly mindsets and a performance mindset, religious mindsets, to be lifted off you, and you'll start to operate in a daily communication with the Lord that feels natural and flowing. And you'll find yourself laughing sometimes at how the Lord speaks to you, because he has a sense of humor. He created humor and laughter, and so you'll find yourself smiling, laughing, saying, "What did you really just say that, Lord? Or did you really use that symbol to get my attention?" And there's a ease in the way that you'll communicate with him. And so I would encourage you with a couple of things. First, to remember that the Lord knows that you're human. The Word of God talks about that he knows we are weak, we're frail, and we're as dust. He knows that we need, that we're not going to be able to perform like a robot and be perfect. And so because of his knowledge of that, he doesn't put an expectation on us of being that way. He's looking at our heart and saying, your heart is mine. And so even on days that you feel like you've made a mess of things, or you wanted to spend 2 hours with me, but you ended up just only getting 5 minutes, the Lord knows our human frame. And so it's not to say that we shouldn't seek the Lord with all we are and pursue him as one would pursue the one they love. But the pressure is off. There's not a performance that the Lord is seeking. The Lord is seeking that you would come and sit at his feet and value his presence even as you go about your day, and to interact and talk with him without performance, without a slave mindset, but with a love mindset, where he can sit with you and sometimes not even say anything at all, but it's just the presence of God and your presence being with him that is a sacrifice in itself and will bring healing and refreshing to you, just being in his presence. And so he knows it's his job to speak and your job to listen. You can't force God to speak. He's already speaking. He already loves at max capacity. And so your job is to rest in his love. And in that position of rest, you might be surprised at the way that he interacts with you and starts talking to you in unexpected ways, or in little things, in little comments, in little moments in the middle of the night that you weren't expecting. And this also applies to how we're expecting him to speak. If we're putting our value in him based off of this, oh, if you really love me, Lord, and this is a big struggle for all of us, I think. If you really love me, Lord, then I'll have some big, huge event where you show up with all the angels in my bedroom, and that's how you'll make it clear that I'm as special as other people. And that is not at all biblical. That is not the heart of the Lord. The Lord already loves you to max capacity, and oftentimes he wants to just visit you with his presence in the middle of the night, just to be with you because he loves you. If the Lord always came just with an agenda to give you an assignment and never to minister to you or just be with you, then again we go back into that more slave master mindset instead of the son father mindset. So oftentimes the Lord wants to just be with us, and we can minister to him and serve him by coming to spend time with him and loving him in response to his love. So be hungry, be expectant, be open, but in a position of rest and relaxation of, okay, Lord, whatever you want to say to me today, I want to hear it. And if you just want to walk with me through my day, and there's no specific communication or specific vision or download you want to give me, but you just want to spend time with me, I am open to whatever you have for me today. And when you start to move into the receiving prophetic words, especially corporate words, where you feel where the Lord leads you, this isn't just for you or your family, this is for everyone, and the Lord starts to lead you in that way. If you develop this type of rest and open intimacy with the Lord, where you let him decide and lead and show up in interesting ways, and you're in a relaxed position, then when the Lord starts to give you more corporate words, you won't fall into that performance. You'll say, okay, well, that doesn't, I feel like a lot of people aren't going to receive that, or that's not really what I was seeking you about. That's not what's in the news right now, or that's not what I think people are wanting to know right now, but you're saying this, so the people need it, and I'm going to share it. And there's a flow to that prophetic process with the Lord when he gives you a word to share. It doesn't have to be what you think he needs to say or what you're asking him a question about. He will often give you prophetic words to share with others, or corporate words that the people aren't banging down the door to hear. That it'll be a word that is on his heart, and he wants it decreed and declared, and it's your job to release it. And people might say, well, how does that even relate to me? How is that important? Who do you think you are to say some random thing like that? Or why should we be praying for this random person? Whatever it is, and you're just operating in that rest and relaxed position with the Lord and saying, this is what he said, and here I'm going to release it. The Lord knows what the people need to hear, what the people need to be praying about, and I'm just going to be a vessel and release that. And that comes from that position of knowing who you are to him, and knowing that he is always communicating. It's not a performance, or it's not a, okay, I did this, this, and this, so now give me a word. That is not the heart of the Lord. And there's so much freedom in that. The Lord wants his children to operate in freedom. And when we're in that position of rest and relaxation, just like John was leaning back on the Lord's chest at the Last Supper, because he was just in that relaxed position and trusting the Lord and in love and intimacy with him, he was given the secrets of the Lord, right? And he was the one to first know what was about to happen. So rest and relaxation opens the door for the Lord to release communication and for you to hear him, because all the guards are down, all of the performance religious checklists are off the table, and it can just flow with him. And the last thing I want to share is the best way to not fall into this blockage of having performance-based listening is actually to value the presence and the person of God over the communication. If you value his presence and who he is as your father and that relationship you have with him, and you're coming to him throughout the day, saying, Lord, what are you thinking? Lord, what's on your mind right now? Lord, I want to hang out with you. Then the communication is going to be natural and flowing. And sometimes it's just he wants to be with you, right? And that is a presence person valuing over I need a word right now. And that I need a word, coming to him just for a word, can cause us to fall back into that performance mindset. So I hope that this word encourages you. I want to bless you to rest and relax in the Lord. The pressure is not on you. The position of rest at his feet is the best place you can be. And I bless you to start hearing with the Lord, laughing with the Lord in daily interactions with him, as he knows you need to have them in a very organic, flowing way as you choose rest over performance. God bless you.